What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's always a huge thanks for coming back. We really appreciate you. So as you guys saw, it was definitely time to do an oil change on the OBS. We were missing about half the oil in that thing. It was about ready to die. For those of you that don't know, obviously, well, if you don't know, you don't know. The OBS 73 trucks, the diesels, the power trucks, the injectors are fired off of oil pressure. And one hidden thing about these trucks is that you're never going to blow up the engine because you have, no oil in it, because they will literally die at a certain point once you get too low in the oil pressure. I believe the high pressure oil pump reservoir will start draining, so you won't have any oil pressure, or any oil to build oil pressure to fire the injectors, something like that. Anyways, I started feeling this thing losing power when I would first start driving it, and I'm like, you know what, I haven't checked the oil in this thing for like 5-6 months. It's probably low and it's probably time to change it. So obviously, like any 73, the oil was pitch dark black, very nasty looking. That's more or less normal. But yeah, it had about half the oil it should have in there. It was at least 5 quarts low, but probably more like 6 or 7 quarts low. But we went ahead, did a quick oil change. I'm gonna go ahead and order a new air filter for this thing to change that out too, and she'll be good for the winter, I think, especially with our Archie Oil friction modifier AR9100. Always use this thing when you guys do an oil change, always. But yeah, guys, today we're gonna jump back on the dually project. Well, actually not today, because I don't know if you can tell, but it's like 12 at night. So tomorrow we're gonna jump on the dually, and the goal for this video is to finally finish the dually project. Again, like I said, the last thing we're waiting on is a couple modifications to the hangers. We've got the U-bolt top plate, the correct ones in, so that should be good to go. And yeah, I'm gonna go home, get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and then we'll be back in the morning to finish the dually and take it for a test drive. So let's go ahead and do that. Alrighty, guys, so I am so happy with the fit and finish of these parts. Everything came out so good. It fits the frame perfectly. All of the bolt holes, we finally got everything to where every bolt was just slide right in. Again, I'm so happy with the way everything turned out. I am struggling here a little bit with that leaf spring, but that's just because I'm weak and the leaf spring is heavy. But we finally got it in there, and again, all the bolts fit in there nice and snug the way they should. I'm gonna give you a pro tip here in a little bit. When you install these shackles, and again, look at that shackle, that's a good looking shackle. I messed up with that bolt. You always want to put that bolt from the frame side, so the tail side of the bolt doesn't contact the hanger or anything else that has to do with the hanger. So that's what I'm doing right there. Is just I did the bolt again from the frame side on the shackle, and then we installed the shackle on the hanger, and we're good to go. Alright, so now the next project that we got to tackle is removing the overload spring from the leaf pack. And the reason we're doing that is because the U-bolts that we have right now for the axle are too short, and removing that overload will give us just enough room to be able to do what we got to do. Okay, so I completely forgot where we left off on the last clip, but I guess we have enough done so we can do a little update video. So we've got the full kit on the truck. We've got the axle, we've got the leaf springs, we got the U-bolts. Everything is tight. If you guys remember in the last video that we did, we couldn't finish this because we didn't have these plates. I got the right ones ordered, so we've got that going. We also modified the leaf springs. As you guys can see, we removed the overloads. As the truck sits, it's honestly not going to be doing a lot of work. It's not going to be towing, hauling anything yet. And we're doing this basically just for R&D. The ultimate setup for this thing is going to be on air ride. The rear is going to be on complete air ride, kind of like Bryce's truck. So again, this is just for R&D to make sure that everything works good. So again, not really too worried about not having the overloads or anything like that on here. I think they're necessary for my application right now. But yeah, again, we've got the front hanger. And like I mentioned in the last video, we made some changes to this. We added the 2 extra holes that you guys wanted to be able to center your axle under the truck perfectly, no matter, you know, if you're running a lot of lift or whatnot. We added those for you guys. We made it to where you don't have to drill a single hole on the frame of this thing. Every single bolt that you see being used is an existing hole that should already be on your frame. The only thing you might have to do is enlarge them. So these are 9/16 bolts, so a little bit bigger than 1/2 inch on the sides. On the bottom of this, we're still using 7/16 bolts, and that's mainly just to get everything aligned where it should be. And that way on the bottom, you guys don't have to. They're also both existing holes on the frame, but with them being 7/16, you won't have to even enlarge them. They should just drop right in. And again, guys, we're doing all this to try and make everything as easy as possible and as bolt-in as possible for you guys. We made the bolts that needed to be big and strong as they needed to be, which are the ones on the side. Again, they're 9/16 instead of 1/2 inch. The ones at the bottom, they don't really need to be that big, so we left them 7/16. Again, super happy with the way that's turning out. Now, the rear. I absolutely love this setup. So we ended up changing the shackle hanger quite a bit. Again, like I mentioned in the last video, I messed up and totally remembered that most trucks have a hitch on this section of the frame. So we removed that bottom plate on the hanger, but we did have this plate come all the way down, bend underneath, and kind of connect everything together to make this as solid as possible. As you can see, we've got this really cool little plate underneath right there. Put this hanger in a spot that would give me the angle that I wanted to see on the shackle, which that is really nice. I like that. Again, our shackle that we made in-house, it's beefy. It's a really nice shackle that I'm actually really happy with the way that it turned out. It's 1/4 inch plates on the outside, 3/16 on this plate and that plate. So it has 2 essentially reinforcing kind of boxing in plates. We've got the one on the inside, the one on the outside, and then this portion 1/4 inch. The DOM tubing with the bushing is also 1/4 inch wall, 2 inch DOM. It's got a grease circ in it, and everything was made to work with the original hardware, so there's no need to go to a smaller size or anything like that. This was a hard piece to find, one that will work with the original hardware, but again, I looked pretty hard until I found someone that made this setup that I'm actually really happy with. Now, it's a little bit hard to tell, but this is quite a bit longer shackle than this one, and we did that for a couple of reasons. This is, I guess, what technically would count as a long travel shackle. So this allows more articulation in your leaf springs, but it also helps your ride be a little bit softer, which I'm really looking forward to driving this thing with this whole setup, because it should ride quite a bit nicer than the OBS setup that we had in here. Again, to design this whole setup, it took a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of scrapped pieces, but I'm happy with the results that we have. I think it looks amazing. As long as we throw the bed on this thing and everything centers up the way that it should be, we'll be good to go. I already think that it's definitely the strongest setup on the market. I mean, everything is so beefy. Even like these plates that you see right here, they go all the way underneath the frame to reinforce and tie everything together. This plate slots into this plate, and then we welded it from the back of that plate to make sure that everything was as solid as possible. We do grind it down and clean it up. That way this plate's completely flush on your frame. We did everything we could to make this one solid piece. I know that it's kind of hard to see down here, but again, we made this bottom plate contour to the frame. I feel like I said that really weird. But again, it follows the contour of the frame perfectly. I've got these two holes that are already on your frame that we're going to be utilizing. Like I said, those plates, they come all the way from the side and under the frame to reinforce everything as best as possible. There's the other side, and we're just so happy with the way everything turned out. Same with these plates. So these plates that you see right here, they slot onto this plate and get welded from the back as well too. And then just, man, look at those welds. That's just beautiful. Really can't wait to test this and actually ride in it. I actually want to show you guys something, because we really want to sell these kits with the leaf springs, and we don't have a lot of them, but we do have access to some, and we should be able to provide at least a few every month. Kind of along with doing installs, we're trying to have more parts in-house. Literally the only part that we don't carry right now that we don't have in-house are axles, and I'm trying to work with some people to be able to buy bulk axles. That way, you guys, again, the final plan for me is for you guys to just drop off your trucks. We'll have everything here in-house. All you have to do is drop off your truck. Fortunately, right now, I haven't found a reliable source for axles, but at least for suspension stuff, we found someone. So all of this stuff is basically from brand new 2023, 24 trucks that people are doing lifts. They're going with Carly suspension, stuff like that, and these get taken off of very, very low mile trucks. I believe that most of those two front sets came from a truck that had from trucks that had under 5,000 miles. This one in the rear, these two have about 15,000 miles on them. But again, everything's still super new and fresh. Most of these as well. These radius arms, these ones are older. The newer 22 and up radius arms, they flare out, and we can't use them with the kit. But luckily they have a whole bunch of these older radius arms that we can use. So again, for now we have coil springs, leaf springs, radius arms, and what we're trying to get set up to do is be able to ship you guys OEM. Again, all of these are OEM Ford leaf springs from 2023, 2024 trucks, and the plan is to be able to put those leaf springs with our hanger kit on a pallet and be able to ship them out to you guys. So again, as long as we have inventory, that is a service that we're going to try and offer to you guys. That way you can buy the hangers, you can buy the leaf springs. We also can get you Skyjacker, Icon, and Deaver, Carly leaf springs. So if you want something even better than the OEM stuff, we can get you those as well. So again, so excited for this kit. But again, for now we have the leaves, the OEM Ford leaves, so we're going to be running those on this truck. Same as for the black truck. Now, we're almost done with the back. Today's Sunday. This video should post on Monday, and by the end of the day, I want to have the bed back on this truck and be able to drive it out of the shop, because I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. But that's all I'm going to show you. You guys are going to love it. I love it. But again, we definitely need the space here in the shop. So we're going to finish this truck today and start working on that other truck. We are also working on Bryce's truck. I'm hoping that this week, so the plan with this thing is to obviously do the front first, because that's going to dictate the rear. So we're going to do the entire front suspension, get it on the wheels, and then level out the rear and build everything around so that it's level to the front. The goal for this week is to get the whole truss set up done on the front, and then start the design of the new track bar bracket that will go essentially through the cross member in the middle of it instead of on the front of it, and it should bolt up to the axle on the cradle somewhere around over here, kind of like we did with Dirty Girl. Now Dirty Girl's what we did what would be considered like a mini cradle, because it only went on one side and not through the whole axle. This thing's getting a full-blown cradle. Let's get back to this project. So before we can even throw the bed back on this thing, we still got to finish a couple of things. We got to attach the brake line, do the shocks, attach the drive shaft, and then we got torque everything. And I'm gonna spray paint the brackets on the frame the way they are right now. I really wish I could have powder coated them like the front ones, but unfortunately I didn't have any time to send them to get powder coated, so paint it is. It's really not a big deal, as you will almost never see these unless you actually look under the truck. They're not nearly as prevalent as the radius arm brackets or the coil buckets or everything on the front. That is always a lot more exposed than all of this stuff in the rear, so I really don't mind if we just spray paint everything black. Obviously we also did paint the frame. I didn't really take the time that I should have to properly prep this frame. Again, we were in a pretty big time crunch, so we kind of just honestly I tried painting it without even prepping it, and it looked horrible. So I did go back and scrape a lot of the rust and caked on mud and everything that it had on it. Took the DA sander, cleaned it up a little bit, and then we sprayed it. But like, I didn't grind this off. I really should have, honestly. Didn't take any of this stuff off. You're not really gonna see a lot of this stuff. I really just wanted to finish this because we just have so many projects going on right now that I needed to finish this so we can start testing it. Okay guys, so we're pretty much ready to put on the bed, and I kind of want to do a quick explanation of everything that I did before we put the bed on. So obviously we did the 2024 rear leaves with our hanger kit, the shackle. Before we put the bed on, there's a couple things that you got to do to do the axle swap, and this is pretty much applies to any Super Duty axle that you use. First thing is that, as you can see, we've got a little adapter fitting right there to adapt the OBS hard line to the Super Duty soft line. So it's just that little fitting right there. The next thing you got to do is you got to remove your old speed sensor from your OBS axle and install it into the Super Duty axle. From there, we installed the 1350 flange yoke onto the axle, and then we did the 1350 new U-joint. It's always a good idea to replace that U-joint when you do this, so we went ahead and did that. We did our skyjacker shocks in the rear, and that's pretty much it. We went ahead and torqued all the bolts and everything except for the actual loose spring bolts. We'll torque those bolts once the bed is on it. That way the entire weight of the truck is on the axle. But other than that, we're pretty much ready to actually throw the bed back on this thing. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead, knock off all the other things that we have to finish, and then we will hopefully throw the bed on by the end of tonight. Oh, we also flipped around that shock mount. So that's the only part that you have to actually cut and weld, and that's pretty much for all the Super Duty axles. The only one that's a bit of an exception is on the 05 through 07 axles. Those come with U-bolts that hold on the shock, so you can actually undo that U-bolt, flip it around, and retighten it. Now you do want to tack the actual mount to the axle once you flip it around, because usually the mount has a little pin that pins onto the axle so it doesn't rotate. When you do that, you lose that pin, so you do want to tack it onto the axle so it doesn't actually rotate. But that's the easiest one to do on ours, because it was a pickup axle. And that's one thing about this axle that I got really lucky that I was able to find it. This is an F450 pickup axle. There's two F450 chassis, Super Duty chassis. There's the pickup, which is what all of these are, and then there's the cabin chassis. The cabin chassis are actually quite a bit narrower than the pickups. So if you get a cabin chassis axle, we'll have to move your spring mounts out to get it to match. And then usually they don't use a flange yoke, so you'll have to either get a custom drive shaft made or swap out your yokes for one of these. And the only good thing about the cabin chassis axles is that both shock mounts mount to the front, so you don't have to do anything with the shock. Like I said, guys, we are pretty much ready to throw the bed back on this thing and figure out if we did place the axle on the right spot. I think we did, but again, we'll find out here in a little bit. Okay guys, so we got the rear end of this truck completely done, and it came out good. It actually came out really, really good, and I'm really happy with how everything turned out. So I guess first thing is that the truck actually rides really, really nice. Like those 20, 24, 23 springs that we have in the back of this thing are smooth, like super smooth. So kind of all around, for complex right here, we have a dirt road that goes around there, around over there, and kind of all the way around these buildings. And I took it through all of those dirt roads, and I couldn't feel the back or the front. Like it rides so nice, and I'm so excited about it. I guess the second thing I want to talk about is that I was really hoping, but I didn't think I was going to be able to nail the ride height, not the ride height, but the levelness of the truck. And this thing is like perfectly level with a slight rake slight rake to the back, but like not even half an inch, or about half an inch, which honestly I like to have about a 1-inch rake in the back. I think that if trucks are perfectly level, the rear actually looks lower than the front, so I like to have the front about an inch higher than the rear, the rear higher than the front, sorry. But regardless, I'm actually really happy. Sure, there we go. I'm really happy that it sits the way that it does. So it sits perfectly level, no block on the rear. The axle is, I mean, I think it's perfectly centered. You guys tell me, but I think it's right where it needs to be. You usually want it to be slightly more to the front, because as the axle travels, it moves slightly to the back. So right there where it's at, I think it's perfect. And the stance on this thing, man, I love it. Like it is, the tires are almost flush with the dually fenders, and the front, obviously we do need some sort of fender flare. One thing that I would love to find for this truck is the fiberglass body kit for it, and then I would like to be able to modify the front to make the flares look more like the F450 flares, and then have the rest of like the fiberglass kit with this truck. Man, I am so happy with this truck. I did find out that that tire on that side has a huge crack on it, so I think for the meantime we're going to change one of these tires over there and put the cracked one on the inside or something, until we can find a nice set of tires. Now remember, the ultimate plan for this thing is down the road to have it on full air ride on 22.5s, shaved down to 22. But now we're gonna jump on this project. I'm so excited about this truck, but that's gonna be for the next video. So again, if you guys are excited about this truck, about the single cab, crew cab shore bed, or this truck that we're gonna be working on right now, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like, leave in a comment, subscribe, because next week the goal is to have this truck fully swapped. And again, we'll show you more in the next video. I don't want to spoil it too much. That truck's gonna be it's gonna be a really, really cool truck. I think you guys are really gonna like it. I love it. So yeah, again guys, a huge thank you. Again, leave a like, comment, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you for the next one.